Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. Glad you're here with us for our presentation on email alerts for SharePoint. So we'll do some quick intros and ground rules, and then we'll jump into the main presentation. If anytime during this presentation, if you have any questions or comments, you can use the Q&A option in the webinar, and I promise you I'll do my best to get to those. Please be patient. I may not be able to answer right away, but I will try to get to your questions and comments before the end of my presentation. I am Will Cooper. I am a SharePoint solution developer and consultant. I've been dedicated to SharePoint for the last 12 years. Anything and everything related to SharePoint, I work on it. I do a lot of things in the SharePoint community. I've got my own YouTube channel that's called SharePoint Smart. I hope you'll check that out. There's lots of cool learning videos and information about SharePoint there. And additional to that, I have my own SharePoint product, which is called SharePoint Dashboards. When we get done with the main presentation, I'll mention a little bit about that if you'd like to stick around. Infowise is our organization that has the software, which will be the focus of our presentation today, about being able to do email rules. And we like to make things simple and easy without having to do any programming whatsoever. And we're all the time improving our product. Ultimate Forms is a full SharePoint solution toolkit. The email notification system is one part of that. It deploys 100% inside of your SharePoint interface. And once again, there's no code whatsoever. It is available both for SharePoint Online and also for on-premise SharePoint. So regardless of what your SharePoint environment is, you can take advantage of these tools. All right, so now we're going to jump into our main focus, which is SharePoint email alerts. They are being retired. This has been announced by Microsoft. They are removing that functionality. That means if you're using it, or if any users in your SharePoint environment use SharePoint email alerts, they will be gone. Here is from the Microsoft page. Here's the timeline, and you can see we're in the orange box right now, October 2025. They're beginning deprecation of the alerts. They're automatically expiring them after 30 days, and so they're in a partially disabled state, and most definitely you're going to notice this diminished capability. This is a precursor to what's happening in the near future in 2026, at which point they will completely remove this functionality from SharePoint. And to get more specific, you can see a screenshot showing what this looks like in SharePoint right now. That will be gone. Here is the alert notification screen provided by SharePoint, also will be gone. In SharePoint, out of the box, they do have another drop-down menu, a Power Automate menu, and you can see there's an option for Power Automate rules. We'll talk about that a little bit. This is the only remaining out-of-the-box option in the user interface. What can Power Automate rules do? They're really only for very basic use. It can tell you if an item's added or modified, and it just sends a generic notification. Some of the functionality we had with SharePoint email alerts, such as daily summary and weekly summary, will be gone completely. This is what the interface looks like. You can click a button. You can make a simple setting to say who you want the email to go to, and then it will create a notification that looks like this. Notice that you really don't have control over the branding or look and feel of that email notification. Very basic and very limited. Another possibility is Power Automate. However, Power Automate is for developers. It is code-oriented, requires training, and is not going to be an accessible option for your general SharePoint audience. So those of you who are SharePoint administrators or developers, you may be used to working in Power Automate, but it's not a fast, efficient way to do emails and not accessible to 99% of SharePoint users. That brings us to Infowise Ultimate Forms. We have a comprehensive email alert system that is user-oriented. It is not geared just for developers, and it is a comprehensive email notification system. This software can allow you to completely replace the SharePoint email alert functionality and, in fact, provide many more capabilities that are not included in that setup. And that's going to be the rest of our presentation. We're going to dive right into it, and I'm going to show you specific examples. Here I am in SharePoint Online, and we're going to go right into it. I'm going to show you all the possibilities in terms of doing email alert notifications. Once again, just a reminder, this option in the command bar for Alert Me and Manage My Alerts is what Microsoft is removing. That will not be there anymore. What I'm going to do next is show you some example email messages. So this system that I'm getting ready to demo, it's going to automatically trigger and send various email messages, and I'm going to show you examples of that before we actually get into the form interface. When you need to send email notifications, there are many different kinds of things that you might want to send, and we'll walk through some examples. This would be an email just showing a summary of updated columns from a SharePoint list item. That's a straightforward possibility. Very commonly, you want to be notified when there's a new request. Here you can see a request for my system, which is for expenditure approvals, and it gives all the key information. Typically, your SharePoint emails are a call to action. It tells what happened and what should happen next, and should be very focused. So this has the name of the person who made the request, what they're requesting, and a detailed description, and then you just click the link, it takes you right to the form. That's a good way to do an email. And then we want to know about approval updates in the system I'm getting ready to send. Notice I can do rich text formatting and have a link that's going to take me directly to the form. Another possibility with our tool set is the ability to put approval buttons directly into your email notifications, which is very handy. It cuts down on the clicks and lets people work even more efficiently. So that's an example that you can see here, and I'm going to go into the setup of this later on to show you how that's created. Here's another style of email notification. This is a summary mode where you can consolidate. I'm sure we will all agree we get too many emails. I don't know anybody who wouldn't agree with that statement, and this is a way to take those notifications and consolidate it into a daily digest. In this case, we're looking at a demo request summary, and this is nice. I don't want to get peppered with emails all throughout the day. I'd like to just see one summary of those requests every morning. Here's another example of a help ticket request, and this is also a typical scenario where whenever somebody makes a help request in a SharePoint list, we want to get a link to the item, get that summary, be able to click on it, and go ahead and take those next steps. And here's another example. This has to do with print templates. SharePoint does not contain any print capabilities. Our tools do have an excellent print template system. It will allow you to produce forms in a PDF format and have those automatically generated and emailed to users. That's another style of email notification. All right, let's jump back to SharePoint, and to demonstrate these email capabilities, what I'm going to be doing is going through this example expenditure request system. I should mention everything I'm demonstrating is available for you to download for free to try out. We have a template tool, and once you install our trial software, you can just click in there and download exactly the thing I'm demonstrating in my presentation today. So let's go into the form and we'll take a look at what we've got going on here. Right away, you're going to notice this does not look like a standard SharePoint form. Also, it is not a Power Apps form, which is difficult to set up and once again, developer oriented. You have to do programming to get that kind of form to work well. This is our own form designer tool. It's a fast and fluid tool which allows you to set up dynamic SharePoint forms. That's what I've got here. So here's an example of the request. In fact, what I'll do is go ahead and put in a new request just to fully demonstrate how this works. I will put in a request to spend money to take my client out to lunch. Whoops. All right, I'm just kind of putting in some silly things just because I can. And notice it automatically defaulted in and request it. I'm going to say I need it today. And I need to pick a category. This is going to be for entertainment. And we're going to go to Jim's Steakhouse. I don't know. I'm just making things up. Medium. And I'll just put myself as the approver. I'm just trying to do a quick demonstration just to show you the concept. So that's it. That's all I got to do to make this request. Now, naturally, that should send an email notification, which is going to go ahead and prompt our approver to take action so they know to do the next step. So that's in the system, and then you can see the approval status showing up on the main dashboard. So that's the form we're working with. And now I'm going to actually jump into our email alerts interface. I'm going to show you a little bit about how this works. So I already mentioned the Microsoft option will be gone. And in our software, notice we have add alert. That is not a Microsoft function. That's our function. It opens up our email alert rules interface, and it's going to show you a list of existing email alert rules as well as let you create a new email alert. This will completely replace and improve what you have available today. Another way I can get there is through our main settings screen. If I go to alerts there, it's going to give me a similar interface, but now I'm in a full screen interface. Now we're going to go through some email rules, and I want to show you how intuitive this is and how easy it is to set up. This is important because it's not beneficial to your organization if only a handful of people know how to create email rules. What you need is a system that can be used by all of your SharePoint users so that they don't have to get help from IT to set up email rules. It should be very easy to do. And I'm going to show you that it is. This is a tabbed interface. It's a wizard, if you will. You work left to right, working through these 5 tabs: general, recipients, what to send, when to send, and email content. It is one of the most easy to learn and intuitive parts of our whole software. On the recipients tab, we naturally are configuring who we want the email to go to. There is a lot of versatility here. Naturally, I can select from my SharePoint user accounts using that people picker field, but also I can do things like reference fields from the form. In my example, I have a requester field. I could add that, or I can even send to an email outside my organization. All of those are possibilities, so it is completely flexible and versatile. Another nice option is the ability to control the account from which it's sent. I set up these notification rules all the time with my customers, and a very typical scenario is to create a no reply user account. Instead of it coming from me personally, I want it to come from our SharePoint system, so I could set up an email user account, no reply at infowisesolutions.com, and have it go from there. That's dynamic and configurable. That pretty much covers recipients. You also have some additional options. If you want to omit somebody from getting emails, you can add them to the never send to option at the bottom. We're already on to the 3rd tab of our email alert configuration, and this is the trigger. Now on this rule, it's very simple. When a new request comes into the SharePoint list, I want the email to go out right away. So I don't need to configure other options. We're going to look at other example email rules, and I'm going to show you where we're going to configure some other options there. Under when to send, normally you're not going to change this. 99.9% of the time, I just leave it as is. We want it to go out immediately. And now we're to the email content. This is a rich text editor tool. We've all used this in web pages and various different applications. It is quite self-explanatory and easy to understand. You just enter your text and you can do formatting. I can make things bold. I can do things like color highlights. I can control the font size. I can do anything I want. I can make it look however I want, again, without having to do any custom coding. You'll notice in the subject line and in the content, the square brackets. These are field references. This is referring to information from the request that came from the SharePoint list form. So I want to include the name of the requester and a description of the expenditure. Those are all coming from the square brackets. You don't have to remember those things. We have a tool which allows you to select those fields and insert them automatically into your content. To do that, I just click on the columns, and in fact, I can very easily type in some letters to filter down quickly, and when I click on that, you can see it will automatically insert the field. Very intuitive. It works the same way both for the subject line and for the body. Another thing that's handy is we're going to link directly to the form. We don't want people to have to go searching around to find this request. We just want them to click in the email and jump right to the form. And the way that's done in the content editor is to click on this item. We've got links to the site or to the list. In many cases, you want to just link directly to the item. The edit item link is the one that I typically use. And in fact, the one that's here, I've already updated the description. I don't like edit item. That seems impersonal. I've changed the text to read review and update here. There's several other options in the bottom. You can optionally include whether you want to include the attachments in the email. You can also have it do a summary of updated columns. We're going to cover that in some of the other rules. So that's the first rule. We're going to jump into some other ones now. So let's do one to send an email when the approval updates. I know if I'm asking to be able to spend money for my company, I want to know right away when it gets approved. And we've got an email set up for that, and I'm going to show you how under what to send we have a different trigger condition. In this case, I just check off modify. I want to know whenever this is updated, and specifically I'm interested in when the approval field changes. So I have approval after change equals the new approval value, and that just means the email will only ever be sent when this one specific field changes and not at any other time. You can see I have a similar looking email content. I've used a little bit different highlighting, and I've personalized, and I say approval's been updated, and I include that in the subject line. I include those new values, and now our requesters are going to know right away when the approval gets updated. Hopefully it gets approved. Another interesting alternative option for approvals is the ability to embed approval buttons directly in the email. Don't even have to go to SharePoint in that case. Now in this situation, we're going to send that to the requester to prompt them to do the approval. And you're going to see in this email content, I actually have managed to embed buttons. How did I do that? This is done through this add column or button. Additional to the columns, I can create buttons. And in this case, I created an approve button and a decline button. I can style those to look however I want. And I need to reference an action, which is configured in another part of the interface. The action just dictates exactly how the record should be updated. As you might guess, it simply changes the approval field to approved. So I've created a couple buttons, and then I added them onto the form. Now they'll show up in the email, and approvals are even easier. All right, let's look at some of the other emails. We'll kind of walk down through them. Under approval update, we've got an email that's going to go out. Oh, we already did approval update. I beg your pardon. Let's go to changes summary. This is going to go out when the item's modified, and it's going to take advantage of a feature we have in our product, which will show only the updated columns. So if you don't want to have to deal with writing out all that content, you can just have it automatically output those updated columns. Another one I demonstrate was a daily summary mode, where we don't want to get peppered with a whole bunch of emails. I'm going to show you how that's configured as well. In this case, I do want to get emails when they're added, but I want to roll it all up into one email. So if I have 10 items added in a day, I'm going to get one email. And the way I'm able to configure that is under the when to send options. I can select daily, I can determine exactly what time, and I can even restrict it to only do this during business days. So that's a digest style email. And one more example I'm going to show you is email reminders. This is a very typical scenario. So thinking about an approval system, typically things can get bogged down, and you want to know if the request is stalled. If it is stalled, I want to poke that approver to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Also very easy to configure. Now in this case, we're going to take advantage of an option to trigger emails according to a date. In our request form, we have a request date, and what I've configured is that this should go out once a day after the request date, and also to repeat every day up to 10 times under a condition. The condition is that approval is requested. So the approval field can be requested, which means it has not been updated, or declined, or approved. In other words, this email will continuously go once a day to the approver to remind them, hey, you had a request to approve this, you need to respond. But it will only do this when they have not fulfilled the request. It's a very handy way to send reminders, and make sure you only send reminders in that particular situation. So all of those possibilities are under alerts, and then also within the interface you can click on options to go to help documentation. Notice there's a link here, so that helps because your users may be new to this, and when they're just starting out on alerts, you can see that we have in-depth documentation about all the different possibilities of what you can do with the email alert rules. Now, one thing I didn't show yet has to do with the PDF print output. That's another feature of our product, and I've defined a PDF print template by simply selecting my columns, and I even put a header up at the top. And because I've defined this print template, it now gives me the option to trigger a PDF out to my user. I'm going to show you how this is set up first. I'm using a special action, email PDF summary. It produces a PDF file, which I can either send to a local SharePoint library, or I can send out through email. I can dynamically name the file and then define email content to go with that. I'm going to actually demonstrate doing that right now. So if I go into this first request and I want to get a PDF printout related to this expenditure, notice I've added a button into my form, and I've defined myself as the email recipient, and I can just click a button in the form to real time trigger a PDF emailed out to me. It's going to give me progress updates, and that's pretty good. It did it in I think about 3 seconds, and that's going to shoot an email out to me, just like the email I showed at the beginning of our demo. Let me pause for a second and ask you guys, what questions do you have? Think about all your different use cases and scenarios for your users in terms of creating email rules. What is it that you use in your environment, and what are your questions in terms of how those would work for your users? I'd be happy to answer those questions. And as I'm waiting for you guys to chime in, I'll continue to talk to you about the interface. One thing you'll notice on the dashboard, this doesn't look like out-of-the-box SharePoint, and that's because I've done some column formatting. Some of this is using templates from a tool that I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes, which is SharePoint dashboards. And the interface is set to show indicators and icons and highlighting according to different situations going on. So if you're wondering how that was set up, that's how that was configured. All right, let's see what question we have. I didn't understand the question. Can the PDFs come included in the actual list item alerts? Yeah, the PDF can be automatically included in the email either through the print template or as an attachment. I'm not sure quite what you're asking, but you can have it sent out however you want. Thank you for the question. What other kinds of things are you guys doing with email notifications, or how are your users using in the environment? Please let me know. All right, as we're thinking about that, let's talk a little bit about how you can access this and try this out. One thing that's awesome with our software, you can find out for yourself. You really do need to find out for yourself if you want to adopt this system. And so if you download our software, you can go to the InfowiseSolutions.com site. It is our full software. It's a time trial. It'll run for up to 30 days, but there is everything in our software. In other words, if you want to try these email rules and see how they work and try to configure these different examples I showed in the demo, you can do all this for yourself. So if you go in and click Try Now for free, you can install this. If you're not your SharePoint administrator, make sure you have your SharePoint administrator do that, and you can go directly into our interface to try it out. Now, when we finish the presentation today, this is going to be available for you to download. And the way you can download this expenditure request system to use for your email testing is to go into our main settings page and click on Solution Catalog. And you're going to find, when you click on Infowise Webinars, that email alert solution is going to be the very first tile. So just click into that, and you can click Install, and it will install exactly what I was demonstrating in our presentation today. So that should help you out. Let's see, do we have any email questions? Okay, no more email questions. I'm going to go on to talk more about different options. So we have our pricing listed on our site. If you want to look at other examples of solutions, if you go to our webinars page, you can see examples of all kinds of different SharePoint solutions. Those are all available for download from our solutions catalog that I was just showing. You can install those for free once you have our software set up. That's definitely worth checking out. We have lots of resources available to help you get started. One of the best resources is to take advantage of our Kickstart training. And Kickstart training just shows you how to build your first form. So a big part of our software is being able to build custom forms. You can either walk through the instructions on the web page or follow along our YouTube video, which walks you through every step. And that's a great way to get started. We also offer formal training if you're interested in signing up for a web session, have your team led through training. So that's another possibility. Now I'm going to pivot. I'm going to go on. I'm going to talk about SharePoint dashboards. This is a separate tool that you can use in addition to Ultimate Forms. It's very easy to use. This allows you to do list views and column formatting within your SharePoint views and do it without having to write any code. This also offers a trial. If you go to the SharePointDashboards.com site, you can get access to 21 free templates. This will allow you to get going, start using the tool, find out how it works, and then if you like that and want to take advantage of all the templates, you can subscribe to get access to all of the templates. As of right now, there are 237 different templates available, and there's lots of cool things you can do. It's a great way to show progress indicators, KPIs, and you can even do full-fledged charting with this product if you're interested in different charting options. So all you have to do is click into the site, click on free and sign up. All you have to do is provide your name and email address and you'll be on your way. That's the SharePoint dashboard site. All right, I am going to stop recording the presentation. This will be available on YouTube later today, but I will keep the web session going.